Well, elsewhere in Europe, Germany is the latest country to announce new restrictions. There will be checks at its borders with Austria, with France, Switzerland, Denmark and Luxembourg. Our correspondent Jenny Hill has the latest from Berlin.
We just had the latest official figures released here. They show that nearly 5,000 people have now tested positive for the virus and 12 people have died. You heard a little bit there about the controls on some of the German border. There are some exemptions, but by and large, unless you've got a good reason for travelling in and out of the country, you won't be able to as of 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. The exemptions, of course, include people bringing goods in and out of the country, people who can prove that they're commuting for work purposes. But as you heard the Interior Minister saying, there is a sense too from the government that they know that the real crisis has yet to come, and I think we're starting to see more and more measures being put into place as a result.
Italy has reported 368 more coronavirus deaths, a new one-day record. Lombardy, the country's worst affected region, accounted for 252 of those. Nationwide, the total death toll is more than 1,800. Ireland has called for all bars and pubs in the country to close immediately and remain shut for the next 2 weeks. Earlier, the country's health minister expressed outrage at some people in his country who were out drinking on Saturday evening in Dublin. He said it was an insult to the efforts of doctors and nurses working on this pandemic. The South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has declared a national state of disaster there following the coronavirus outbreak. He said citizens from high-risk countries would be denied entry and screening would be strengthened at all major airports. And the Czech Republic has also closed its borders and has introduced severe restrictions banning people from moving around except for work, for essential shopping and other necessary activities. That ban until the 24th of March. Schools have also been closed there. Drastic action from the Federal Reserve to tackle coronavirus. It's cut interest rates to 0.25% and has announced coordinated action with other central banks.
As the death toll across Europe rises, Spain begins a state of near lockdown, with people only allowed out of their homes to work, buy food or get medical care. Let's now take a look at some front pages from around the world, and let's start with the Frankfurter Allgemeine newspaper, which has the latest on Germany's new restrictions, which we told you a little earlier. There will be checks at borders with Austria, France, Switzerland, Denmark and Luxembourg. The paper also includes an editorial describing it as the time of contradictions, solidarity without social contacts, closed societies who want to stay free. Meanwhile, the Philippine Star is reporting shopping centre closures and a shortage of thermal scanners, and its front page has this picture of a Catholic mass where people are being kept apart using caution tape. And the Financial Times is reporting that the UK is looking to step up its response to the threat of the virus. And it has this opinion piece saying the coronavirus should be a spur to action to galvanise policymakers, regulators and companies to work together. So once again, the coronavirus outbreak dominating news headlines. Kasia.
Now, in the last few minutes, Reuters news agency is reporting the mayor of Los Angeles has ordered all restaurants, bars and nightclubs to close as part of efforts to slow the spread of coronavirus. Now, the news follows media reports we have had in the last few minutes as well that the mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, has made a similar order. He's also asking for restaurants, bars and cinemas in New York to be shut except for delivery.
The move follows a similar ruling in Ireland, where all pubs and bars were told to close at midnight last night. For the next 2 weeks, the government there has also asked people not to hold house parties.
It's Monday morning, it's 17 minutes past 6. Thanks for being with us today. Let's have a look at some of the main stories in the papers this morning, all reporting on different aspects of the coronavirus pandemic. This is the Mail, describing the Queen as unflappable, they say, and urges their readers to pull together for our elderly. It says hundreds of local groups will come together to help the over 70s if they have to go into isolation.
The Daily Telegraph reports that people could be taken into custody or fined £1,000 if they refuse to be tested or quarantined.
There's a lot of toilet paper there in that trolley, isn't there? The Guardian says that cities across Europe have fallen silent amid lockdowns. Main image is Pope Francis blessing an empty square yesterday, St Peter's Square, that is.
Online, the main image on the Huffington Post is of Nick Matthews, the 59-year-old retired police officer who was named as having died after contracting coronavirus. His wife, Mary, has paid tribute to him as her soulmate and her best friend. We're going to look at some of the inside pages. You mentioned the toilet roll. Look at this. You may have to hold this for me, actually.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get a sense, really, of what's going on, all over the world in reaction to coronavirus. And this is quite a good one. This is from the inside of the Daily Mail. Look, the Eiffel Tower closed. UK polls, we know, were postponed. This is Baywatch. They say a police officer blocking access to a beach in Barcelona will be... I think we're speaking to people who've been in Spain. This is selfies sent to a church in Italy after martyrs there were halted. Look, this social distancing at a church in the Philippines as well. Lots of queues at airports, for example, in America. These are passengers queuing up for 10 hours, apparently, to get through checks at Chicago airport. And then again, panic buying. This is actually in LA as well, but just extraordinary. We do live in it every time, every hour, everything seems to change, but that's a real sense of all the different things going on all over the world.
I'm touched by the number of people who are sort of helping others, actually. You talk about churches there. There's all sorts of articles today about sort of changes to religious services in churches, people live streaming and changing things regarding Easter, like recording audiobook services. I spoke to somebody in church yesterday, and he was desperately trying to get back from Spain, and this was the end of last week, and loads of people just sort of crammed onto this flight. It was delayed for quite a few hours. Eventually they got back, and he got speaking to an elderly couple who were in their 70s, who were from Burnley, and the flight was going back to East Midlands Airport, and they said, we don't even know where East Midlands Airport is, so how do we get home? And this is one of those lovely acts of kindness. He said, I'll look after you. He drove them back to his house in Sheffield. They stayed the night with him in Sheffield, and then he drove them back home.
It's what we all got to do. We've got to pull together.
Got to
look out for each other.
You've got to look after each other. Lots of people putting notes through neighbours' doors, aren't they? Saying, this is, if you don't know each other's phone numbers, this is my phone number, call me if you need help, shopping, anything.
There's a village shop going out this morning in my village as well.
I think it's a very strange, isn't it, to have a sort of national crisis like this, and yet so much of sort of the control of it and what happens actually is reliant upon us in terms of...
That's because so much of it is out of our hands now.
But how we act with ourselves and with our families, but also how we look after each other, I think that's... It's quite important, isn't it?
And scientific advisors and the Prime Minister will discuss the next steps in the UK's fight against the coronavirus, at an emergency COBRA meeting.
Downing Street has also announced that Boris Johnson or a senior minister will hold daily televised news conferences on the coronavirus outbreak. A total of 35 people have died in the UK after contracting Covid-19.
Large-scale events like football matches and music festivals in Scotland are cancelled from today to free up emergency services to deal with the virus. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon advised event organisers that mass gatherings of more than 500 people should not go ahead.
Strict measures have come into force across some parts of Europe to try and limit the spread of the virus, including closing schools, shops and businesses. The number of infections has risen quite sharply. Italy, Spain and France have all recorded their highest death tolls in a single day. Germany has sealed most of its borders to non-commercial traffic.